Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast. It is President's Cup week, President's Cup preview. My number one President's Cup fan, Mr. TC, is here. Hello, TC.
Solly, this year it's the Prime Minister's Cup, my man. I know you're a big Trudeau guy.
God damn it. KVB is here as well. Hello, Kev.
So, I'm a fan of many presidents, many heads of state. I don't discriminate this week. All parties are welcome.
Yeah, we're going to talk the politics of this event here for the first hour, and then we're going to get on the golf half here for the final 5 minutes of today's show.
Hell yeah. We're going to talk Quebec separatist movement and all that stuff.
I need to be able to mute TC's mic because even in the joking section, we're gonna get ourselves canceled. Guys, who could forget the duel between Bryson and Rory down the stretch at the 2024 U.S. Open? Who among us is going to want to try Bryson's shot from the bunker to see if they can get up and down? It's a great question. You can do this. You can do it yourself. You can show up, pay a green fee, turn up at Pinehurst number 2. You can sit there on the veranda behind the 18th green watching a bunch of golfers try to execute that shot and go do it yourself as well with other people watching you. And don't forget, just a couple of months before the U.S. Open, reminded everyone of what kind of a gem number 2 is. Pinehurst opened a brand new course, number 10. It opened in the spring of 2024. It's designed by Tom Doak. It features dramatic elevation changes, natural sandy areas, and remnants of an early 20th century sand mining operation. Just wait until you see the 8th hole. TC has seen it himself.
It's good, Solly. DJ and I played it late last year, early last December. It's good. It's big. It's really nice to be able to get off property and kind of get to a secluded course as well.
Golf Digest said there are holes that are unlike anything else, not just here, but anywhere. Pinehurst continues to invest in its present and future, making it better and better every year. Renovations to the Carolina are now complete, offering fresh and inspired takes on its guest rooms and lobby. Pinehurst even debuted another restaurant, the Carolina Vista Lounge, an expanded cocktail bar with a contemporary menu unlike anything else at Pinehurst, offering guests a stylish and satisfying respite befitting its setting in the historic Carolina Hotel. Looking back just between its 2 most recent U.S. Opens, 2014 and 2024, it's been a huge era of evolution for Pinehurst. In that time, they opened the Cradle Short Course. It's been wildly popular since it opened in 2017. Gil Hance redesigned Pinehurst number 4. It's gone consistent praise. Pinehurst Brewing Company, housed in the original building that served as the village of Pinehurst Steam Plant in 1895, remains as popular as ever among guests and locals alike. The hotels are freshly renovated. A dramatic new course is open. There are new dining options, and even more is on the way, which we'll hear about soon. Pinehurst never stops getting better. Get there. All right, Kev, throwing to you first. What is the number one storyline heading into the 2024 President's Cup?
Is this a quiz or is this my opinion?
There is one correct answer. You better have it.
Are you the cops, Solly?
You got the script the PGA Tour sent over, right? Just read off that.
With apologies to Jim Furyk, who said F you to our friend Adam Schupak about this. The number one storyline is, can the internationals pull off an upset and make the President's Cup bring to life a real true rivalry? TC, are your boys ready?
Man, I hope so. And that's not my number one storyline, though. My number one storyline is coming from Adam Schupak.
The infrastructure. Here we
go.
The
infrastructure. There's only one bridge on and off this island. Can this bridge hold up? Local residents say no. Could be a disaster. They feel good about the plan, but who knows what we'll see. Will we see a repeat of, the Solheim Cup from a couple weeks ago? I doubt it.
Boats at the ready. Is the Royal Navy of Canada ready to
Dunkirk situation?
Yeah, help out, ship people across
Mounties,
the waters. Yeah. If you're a Mountie, drop us a note. Let us know if you think it's all going well.
This is testing my usual theory on a lot of these things is like benefit of the doubt, and you want to say they've probably thought about this, right? And way too often in golf, it turns out people haven't thought these things that you think would be very easy hurdles to clear and very obvious bottlenecks, but we'll see. Maybe it's just drumming up a little interest on the front end, and they'll have it all sorted.
Yeah, the officials, they were assured that the project to expand this bridge from 3 to 4 lanes would be complete by now. It's not, and I think that's kind of a very indicative thing of Quebec in general. I think it's a very corrupt place. That's my recollection from there, and they're very outwardly open about that as well. Like, hey, that's the deal. And there's some quotes in this Adam Schupak piece saying, let me tell you, 15 years ago, it was horrible, said one local resident. I feel like KVV should be reading this in a in a
French
French
accent.
Canadian accent.
It does what I
Just a
do.
really
I
pitchy
don't
French
know if I
Canadian
know how to
accent.
do a Canadian French accent. I don't know if I have enough experience.
This time it's going to be even worse with the bridge, they said. So
Cool. Very cool. Well, that's got me excited as well. What is your guys' excitement level? TC, how excited are you for this coming week?
you know what? The fact that Jim Furyk is a captain makes me more excited than I otherwise would be. Because the last time he was a captain in something didn't go well, Solly. I don't have to remind you of that, right?
Got their asses kicked. Everybody fought. The pairings were a head scratcher. All his captain's picks shat the bed, which I don't blame him for the captain's picks. We don't have to relitigate that one, but
That was in another place that they spoke French as well.
that's very true. That's extremely true. Here's why I'm excited for this week. I've done this job long enough to shit on this event in the early part of the week, only to when it comes on, been like, you know what? I kind of forget how fun this is. That my radar's up on this. Team golf is great. We know this. It's not the Ryder Cup. That's fine. Just like take the Ryder Cup out of this. What would you rather be doing this weekend? Having something like the Pro Core or having a team event? It is an imperfect event. There's no denying that. A lot of the PGA Tour stink is all over this event and kind of, heads us towards some of that apathy. But all that aside, fun stuff happens in this event every single time. The team dynamics are super interesting to follow. Even if it's an ass whooping, there's always funny stuff happening that just does not happen in normal events. So I tend to scold people that shit too hard on the President's Cup to say, like, you're going to be watching and it's going to be fun. The coverage is going to be horrible. We know that. We don't even need to cover that, but it's still going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. You're going to have to guess on what the score of the matches is. We know that, but I'm anticipating a fun week, and we're going to be live shows all week, and we're going to be bringing the full court press.
It's all my guy Keegan gets to be back in a team event for the first time in a
This
long.
You have a
freaking time.
lot riding on this week.
I do.
A lot. A lot.
Listen, what if I'm redeemed though? You guys are gonna have to finally eat it.
Doesn't count. No, there's nothing. If he does well in the President's Cup, that doesn't solve anything. Everybody,
here you go, moving the goal. There you go again, Solly, moving the goalposts.
He can beat
actually
the
gonna
hell
be
out of
transmitting the data
Taylor
from meters to
Pendrith
yards.
today.
Some kind of bullshit.
There hasn't been one bad President's Cup player on the U.S. I don't think in the last 30 years. So
Sam Burns was pretty bad. Scotty was pretty
an
bad.
Example of one for later in the podcast. So
Scotty was bad at Quail, but I will defend till the death that Sam Burns was actually really good at Quail, and his record did not reflect it. And the numbers pan out on that one. So I will defend that. Scotty has been bad in a lot of team events, so that is worth noting since the 2021 Ryder Cup.
What about Patrick Reed going 1-3 in Australia when they should have lost the cup that year? We'll get to that.
We'll get to some of that. We're going to relive a couple President's Cup memories. If you didn't listen already, KVV and I did a deep dive into the history of the President's Cup. We dove into 4 different President's Cups: 1994, 96, 2003, and 2017. That should be in your podcast feed from last week. Just a quick primer, some information. Of course, we are going to Royal Montreal up in Quebec, as mentioned. If you have not been following it closely, the United States team is Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, Wyndham Clark, Patrick Cantlay, and Sahith Theegala. Those were your qualifiers. The remaining team was made up of Keegan Bradley, Sam Burns, Tony Finau, Brian Harman, Russell Henley, and Max Homa. Those were numbers 7 through 12 on this archaic points list that they came up with here. Quick vote. Do you think Jim Furyk just picked 7 through 12 on the list? Do you think that's what happened here?
Yeah. Well, he talked about it a little bit in the shoe pack thing. And yes, I do.
Yeah,
totally. Like, yeah, it was just a coincidence. No, it wasn't. Like, you're old school. This is how you operate.
Yeah.
So
I think it was kind of a fuck you to like the whole, like, you want to be controversy about this? Fine. I'll just take the 12. Whatever. You got it in points. That's why JT didn't make it. It was just basically like, whatever. We're going to teach a lesson that you got to qualify for this. Otherwise, you're not in it.
Yeah, so even if the points list in the way of coming up with it is not the best judgment of talent, it's a FedEx Cup list. It's still very convoluted. It rewards big peaks and that does not reward consistency. I've got all kinds of problems with it with the way the U.S. has done this for many years. And Europe isn't that much better, to be honest. It's if they even are better. Like both sides are doing this qualification part.
Talking about international or Europe?
Europe, I'm saying for Ryder Cup time.
Gotcha.
International is actually maybe one of the best of them in terms of just kind of world ranking points and all that.
Like, I think I will say, I'm excited to see Russell Henley on a team. I think he's one of those glue guys that makes sense. It's kind of wild that this is only Scotty's second President's Cup. And then, you got Wyndham Clark as a rookie. You got Sahith. I think Sahith could be electric in match play. Very excited to see him scramble and, have to play. Like, please send him out in alt shot. I'm dying to see Sahith play alt shot.
I think we're going to see a lot of Sahith. I would have to think. There's not a lot of sitting. There's the 2 extra matches in the President's Cup. There's 2 guys sitting each of the first 2 days on Thursday and Friday. There's 5 matches Thursday, 5 matches Friday, and then there's 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon on Saturday. So you'll see more people sitting on Saturday and of course in the Sunday singles. But so there's a lot more golf to be played for pretty much everyone. Royal Montreal. I looked at this golf course just in flyovers. Yeah, I mean, it's a golf course.
It's a golf course.
It's 18 of the holes is what I counted. Not a lot of variety out there. Yeah, the front 9 is kind of just the same hole and repeat, just bending different directions with a little 3 to 4 yard walkway up to the green, perched up with bunkers and rough around it. There is short grass around the 12th hole. When we get to that one, the par 5, that was the first one where I saw short grass around the green. Listen, we're not going to do too many architecture critiques of team golf courses. It's more about packing the venue and making a scene and all that stuff. And I just want to see exciting golf promoted here. Probably should be fine. Like it wasn't offensive, but it's not necessarily. My guy Dick Wilson wasn't exactly pounding out bangers in 1969 when he laid this.
Which
golf
is
course
kind
up.
of a bummer because he's actually the tour had a good Bradley Klein feature earlier this week about the golf course, and Dick Wilson came up under KBV's guy Bill Flynn,
Yeah.
up in the Northeast, and then Wilson kind of hung up his own shingle and did some good stuff, did some not so good stuff, and died prematurely as well.
TC, I feel like you should throw a bone to the Canadians and be like, list your 5 favorite Canadian courses at some point this week, because you're always on the Canadians.
You are.
You really make an enemy of very friendly people. You
are very, very
you
passive aggressive people.
Yeah. Well, that does happen. But I would like to see you maybe kind of reach out, even though you're not truly supporting. You're taking this year off from your true support of the internationals because of the captain behind things. I feel like you should maybe kind of olive branch to the Canadians.
I'm still supporting. I'm on like the no dues plan right now. It's kind of a disgrace that this isn't a Stanley Thompson course, right? And I will say the Canadians, they can be passive aggressive. French Canadians, not so much. They're just like aggressive.
It's tough when this event is sandwiched between Royal Melbourne and Kingston Heath as far as international rotational venues. And there's been a President's Cup here. I'm sure that they view that as a success. I'm guessing it's a financial success is probably the reason it's coming back to this location. And Northern Hemisphere is probably good for the TV markets, even though the ratings are going to be cataclysmic. I have a feeling this week, but I want to get to the internationals here in a second. But just your comments there about Furyk, TC, have me. The overall general feeling, I think, amongst a lot of people, it's hard to get excited about this iteration of the U.S. team for a lot of reasons. One of which is they've done Davis Love and Jim Furyk as the last 2 President's Cup captains. And the synergy, I thought kind of the whole point of the task force in 2015 was to create a lot more connectivity between the President's Cup teams and the Ryder Cup teams. And it doesn't really seem to be there. I don't even necessarily disagree with this idea, but they've clearly said that like the President's Cup is not a training ground for the Ryder Cup. Like we're not going to treat it like let's get these guys in the door. Let's get, I'd rather have Brian Harmon on this team than JT, even if JT is more likely to be on the team at Bethpage than Brian Harmon is. Don't care. We're going to, pick the team based on, I don't even know if they picked this team based on the golf course though, because they just went off the points list, but it is very much like they'd already started this cycle. Jim Furyk was already the captain of the President's Cup team when they lost the Ryder Cup last year in Rome. And this new approach that they're taking into the Ryder Cup with Keegan Bradley as the captain, this whole thing was already in motion. So it's kind of a lame duck situation in terms of this might be the last of this generation kind of being involved in this. And Jim has been involved in basically everything going back to the mid-90s when it comes to the Ryder Cup, and it's not been a lot of success. I'm not pinning all that blame necessarily on Jim Furyk, but he's got a lot of experience doing this, and I don't think it's experience that is on the right path of the way the U.S. is going to do this in the future. I'm sure he knows a shitload about what goes on behind the scenes that, is our efficiencies gained in all of this. But as far as strategy and team building, it's just hard to be like, now is the year Jim Furyk's going to have this figured out. He didn't in 2018. He was assistant captain in Rome. He was a part of all of the losing teams that went over and traveled to all the European Ryder Cups. What are the chances that just now he learned exactly how this works? Or maybe he's part of like kind of the old guard that has the U.S. down the wrong path. That's an interesting storyline for me this week because I am not positive the U.S. is going to win this. That's a long-winded way of saying if there's a time for them to get upset, it's with this team, kind of with the captain's picks they took on the road in Canada. Like it could seriously happen.
And some cold weather grasses and all of that too. Kind of, different from stuff that that some of these US guys succeed on. I will say one guy that I think is a really good addition to this US team. He's been on the previous two iterations of this, Tony Finau. I think Tony Finau is an essential part of US success moving forward. I know he's not the youngest guy and he's not a spring chicken, but seems like a good guy in the team room. He's got a pretty diverse skill set, can play on a wide range of golf courses, and has played pretty well in the previous two iterations of these.
Gosh, that's huge you to say.
So just making me thinking about Furyk. Like in some ways, isn't Furyk kind of taking the I don't know if take the bullet is the right word, but like this should be Phil's like first swing as a captain, right? Phil kind of screwed up the order of things that they had built through the task force to be like a natural thing for like Phil to get a President's Cup, then to eventually go get a Ryder Cup. And the fact that he's not around is persona non grata for a lot of these people. He's not there. Someone has to step up and take it. I would feel bad in some ways for Furyk, although certainly he will play a role in some of it. If this is the first cup that the internationals win in a long time, because then, he will have been the captain of two kind of disastrous losses for the US in some ways. And certainly like maybe we need to revout the whole program. I don't think as much as we've shit on Paris, like I've said this a few times on the pod over the years, I talked to Furyk about the whole Reed thing in a piece that was never published for ESPN about what a sort of shit show that was. And he was just sort of like, man, my hands were sort of tied. Like, in a lot of ways, like you can only make guys kind of do, so much and can't make them get along. And like, they need to sort of put it behind them and figure it out because they're going to be a lot of cups together. And then they weren't. All of a sudden Reed was gone and hasn't been sniffed a Ryder Cup team since. So I could just sort of see and hear like the pain in his voice being like, man, what am I supposed to do with some of this shit? Like they played like garbage. And I mean, this is me paraphrasing, but him being like, I just don't think they showed up ready at all for that. He does get to own the Phil pick as a actual pick, but
But to that, like, I don't disagree with anything you just said at all. But like that to me is where like we're on the wrong path to begin with there of like, yeah, they all played like shit. Everybody played like shit. It's like, yeah, part of your job is to get them ready to not play like shit. Like that's kind of part of the deal. Like that's the thing that just nobody seems to be able to get on the US side. Why? Every single European Ryder Cup team, do they get more out of a less talented group than the US does? Like what's the answer to that? And we have the answers. Like those answers have presented themselves in many different forms through many different podcast answers over the year. And the US is still just kind of like, we're just going to do it our own way. Like
I was going to say the US always seems like, well, you know what? This is the way we do it.
Yes,
so we're
exactly.
Gonna keep doing it that way instead of.
Look, this is not a Ryder Cup podcast, so you don't want to litigate it too much. But like, was it Furyk's fault that like Tiger won the Tour Championship that year and then was completely gassed? Is it Furyk's fault that Bryson was just like completely like out of his element there and like totally overwhelmed and playing with Phil, who was hitting driver iron
a little bit? So like that's where it's like when they showed up and saw that golf course, it was like, oh boy, that should have been on the radar of like, oh my God, we need a Kevin Kisner style player for this golf course. Like they just didn't have their analytics their ducks in a row on that front. They just were Bubba Watson on that golf course playing foursomes. Like the European team was literally laughing at the pairings when they went out.
It didn't even matter the golf course for Bubba. He was just pissed to be in France.
All right. What is it? We're not going to talk Ryder Cup. What does the internationals have to do
that speaks
to win this week?
But that speaks to like what the US is going through right now with the Furyk kind of way of doing things. Again, that's not as much blame on Jim as it sounds like. It's just this mentality thing that like this group there's an entire generation on the American side that have not figured out how to crack this puzzle, right? And they keep getting the captaincies. But the cycle ends here. That's kind of a big storyline in this, if you ask me. So
I would say from the international side, first step KVV is Taylor Pendrith and Corey Connors not going a combined 0-8. That would be a massive first step. Those two were an absolute disgrace at Quail Hollow, and single hand or double handedly, quadruple handedly, whatever, cost them the cup. Okay, that's number one right there. We need Minwoo Lee to step up. I think Mackenzie Hughes should be a really good fit for this golf course. Should be a good fit on home soil. Solly, if you want to get into who's on the team, we can
Yeah,
do that.
sure. I'm happy to do that, TC. Hideki Matsuyama, Sung J M, Adam Scott, Tom Kim, Jason Day, Ben On, Christian Bezadenhout, Corey Connors, Mackenzie Hughes, Siwoo Kim, Minwoo Lee, and Taylor Pendrith make up the international team.
Yeah, so I think so. You got two rookies there. You got Minwoo Lee and Mackenzie Hughes. Bez only played twice at Quail Hollow. He was 1-0-1, kind of made everybody else play a lot more because he only played twice. It's kind of one of those things. They got to be greater than the sum of their parts, right? You got to have a strong Mackenzie Hughes. You got to have, somebody like a Siwoo Kim or Ben On really, really step up. You got to have Tom Kim return to kind of that magic form that he had, even though he only went 2 and 3. You've got Adam Scott, and this is what his 10th President's Cup or 11th President's Cup. He's got to be a stalwart there. And then Jason Day is only 5-11-4 in President's Cups, and I think you need quite a bit out of him as well. I've no concerns about Hideki, Sung Jae. I think those guys are ready to rock. It comes down to, I think these Canadians need to put their money where their mouth is. And, especially after they left Hadwin off the team and Nick Taylor. And yeah.
We saw it at Royal Melbourne, and that was a different iteration of this, and it was another jet lag situation from the U.S. team coming from the Bahamas and getting there late. When the internationals got off the bus and went up 4-1 in that very first session, and I think I do not think there's a path to victory for the internationals that does not include, at minimum, 3-2 win on day one. Like, get off the bus and like get the crowd into it, put a little fear in these guys, a little doubt in these guys. I think if they lose that opening session, it's night.
Well, maybe they won't have Hao Tong Lee hitting driver on holes that what's basically the stories are that he just ignored all the advice. Didn't have his regular caddy, was just like gonna bash driver on Royal Melbourne.
He turned up with his physio, his caddy. He was like, "Yeah, I left my normal caddy at home," and yeah, but that said, like I do have full confidence in the internationals to do the right stuff as far as the pairings and as far as knowing the stats and knowing the analytics and putting the right guys with one another. They've made it clear that like everything that the US team does wrong, as far as a lack of continuity or a lack of just a cogent plan, spanning multiple cups, the international team has that in spades. And that's why they've been able to keep it closer than it should have been based on the talent level.
That's what I was going to say. TC is like the exact opposite of everything I'm talking about on the U.S. side is like what we saw out of Trevor Immelman and the team in 2022. Because if you don't remember what the hand they were dealt leading up into, I honestly thought the U.S. team might put up 22 points on them. Like I thought it was going to be a way bigger spanking than it actually was. It was a tough start. They fell behind 8-2, but they won Saturday and they came within a point of winning Sunday. But basically, last 2 days overall, the internationals beat the U.S. on home soil. They were way too far behind to start it out. So that's all that to say, like, I put a little scare in them. They got so much out of a team that had no business hanging with the Scotty Schefflers and Xanders. And that's not faint praise to say, like, that was a seriously impressive performance in 2022. And like, put a little scary in them even on Sunday. I had that little moment where I was like, dude, Xander, you better do something here, because like it might get a little bit bleak here on the back end. But that's
Which
memory.
I think, we're looking at that team. Obviously, that team in 22 was, comprised of a bunch of guys that no longer are eligible for the team either. So, the whole live defections thing has gutted this team. You've got Cam Smith, Joaquin, Mito's kind of cashed. You can write him off. But listen, I'm a little bit sad that my guy Foxy isn't getting looks for these. Solly, I think you may have something to do with that. Leash obviously would be a shoe in for a team like this. The one guy that I just don't understand why he's not on this team is Cameron Davis. Cam Davis he seems like a really good golfer, and can be more dominant than a lot of these other guys on the team. Maybe it's just his game just
Just
doesn't
doesn't pass the
translate.
smell test, TC, which you broke earlier.
Well, I don't know if the teams has their selected answers this, but as I understand it, there is a driving accuracy element to this venue in particular. And I don't know exactly. It's Monday as we're recording this. I don't know exactly how it's set up and how it's playing and all that, but had heard the expectation was going to be thick, rough, narrow fairways, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So fun.
but like certain venues, that can mean it pays to just bomb it far and hack it out of the rough.
Yeah.
But just again, this is extremely amateur opinion here, but just looking at the flyovers over it a little bit, like I can't exactly tell how it's going to play, and I don't like the Brian Harmon thing would make more sense if the idea was like, hey, we need to play accuracy station to station style golf.
Yeah.
But that makes the Max thing make a little less sense with how he's driven the ball in the better part of 2024. So that's where I'm just not seeing like a clear vision on like we are building a team around this golf course really on either side. I know that the teams are looking at both of those things and those are factored in. And the internationals are going to be in control to some extent on how they set this up. But I know the PGA Tour has their hands in that stuff too. And it's not quite the same advantage that you maybe get in the Ryder Cup. But
That's where I struggle with Furyk of like, all right, if it's going to be like that, or if they know that it's going to be more of a point to point golf course than a Chris Kirk or a country music sensation Eric Cole, playing north of the border there would be more of a
yeah.
fit than a
Cole had
Max,
kind of a
right?
stinky season, though. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough. But listen,
I
you can
just wanted
line
to
up.
see Akshay.
I
I'm
know.
bummed that Akshay didn't make it.
It's a bum. They did not go fun with the captain's picks. That's for sure. Russell Henley definitely deserved a pick.
Solid.
But
The President's Cup is not about fun. All right. It's
not. It's
about
very serious.
serious competition and stretching this thing over 4 days so that they can make as much money as possible off of. I
Hey,
still remember the
us too.
first
We're doing
President's
4
Cup we
shows.
went to at Muirfield Village. And I
2013.
remember just like, oh my God, like this thing's 4 days and there's 5 balls on the course, or there's 5 matches on the course. Both of these first two, it was maddening. It's crazy.
God, we camped out. What was that? The 8th tee. We camped out for so long, like through a rain delay, like legs spread up on the ropes, only to have like some people come up and tap us behind us. Like, do you mind if we get up on the ropes? And we are like, I mean, come on, we got here so early. She's like, I know, but my son's playing in this. And it was Speed's mom. And I was like, okay, I'm a big fan of your son. You can go ahead and have the view. You can line up your first win when you bet this week on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. We're going to talk about this a little bit. The U.S. is minus 250 to win. Internationals are plus 270 to win. That includes the tie in there. I think that's plus 1,600. Of course, odds are subject to change. That's about the same. The Bills and the Jags are playing tonight. Bills are a 5.5 point favorite. They were also minus 250 to win. So a comp there to say like, that feels like if you wanted to lay some lumber, I know I said the internationals could win, but if you wanted to lay some lumber, it seems like the U.S. might be bigger favorites than that one on that one. But who knows? We're bound for an upset in some of this, but I like the U.S. at minus 250. I think they could have had way worse odds. You can check out live golf markets every week to stay in the action, even after the first tee. Plus, track every shot live in the app and watch your select par 3 holes while you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/NLU and get $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official betting operator of the PGA Tour. Must be 21 and older, 18 and older in D.C. and President select states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit rg-help.com. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. So, TC, can you explain what were we so concerned about with Mike Weir? You would follow Trevor Immelman in a battle. Of course, they were going to transition this to a Canadian captain on the Canadian homeland. I just don't know if I'm seeing enough for you to have this much kind of vitriol towards a captain of your beloved Shield.
Yeah, no, I mean Weir took down the cat here at Royal Montreal in a previous iteration of this thing in a seminal moment for Canadian golf. So. Listen, all credit to Mike. I just can't. He's just corny. I just can't do it, man. Like, watching
the
him and
Canadian
Michelle
Zach
Money.
Johnson? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's
Wow.
I think he's better. I think he
I think he's
probably has
better
a more
than TJ.
impressive career than Zach Johnson, minus he didn't win an Open at the old course, but I don't know. He's just never been my cup of tea. I respect his grit and his grind. Even like he was playing a full schedule, and it just pissed me off those last few years of his PGA Tour career too. He was playing a full schedule, like missing cuts by a million or withdrawing and just taking up a spot in the field. But that's kind of his grinder hockey mentality, right? So I don't know. Listen. I have full confidence in the captains. Like, it seems like they're acting as a unit. You've got Mike Weir, you've got Immelman back, you've got Vijaygas, you've got Jeff Ogilvy, Ernie Els. Like, it's a good brain trust of guys. They've got all their stats guys and all that. So no concerns whatsoever. And it's kind of crazy that they've got Vijaygas on there and they don't have a single Latin speaking guy on the team. Like, Sebastian Munoz or Joaquin, those guys, it's just straight Canadians, Australians, Koreans, and then you've got, Hideki's the lone Japanese guy. So
Why would that be? Why do you think that is, TC? I'm trying to figure that out. What happened to the South American guys?
well, yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. They all left for live, but I think some of it's just the crooked OWGR as well, right?
True. TC, the best stories that I've ever heard about how the internationals sort of turned the tide and started being competitive in this is that Ernie Els used to like take them all out drinking the week before and just get them really, really like a little bit too imbibed, and that's how they bonded. That's how like the Japanese guys started talking to the Canadians and the South American guys started talking to, the Australians. And I love that approach. I hope that Mike Weir, I fear that he might be a little bit too of a, straight arrow, a little bit too.
We need Michelle Money to take him out then. His wife.
I'm not sure that's
the fact that
in the
Michelle
malls
Money
this week.
went from Carlos Boozer to Mike Weir, just
I
blows my
regret bringing
mind.
this up. Like, sorry, Kevin, continue.
It's
No,
crazy.
I want to see them like even in some of the deep dives that Sally does, and they were literally in the 2003 President's Cup, like having a drinking like barbecue during the event, during the like inviting the US team to come over
Sounds
and
like a
get
block party.
yeah, like exactly. The original block party might have happened into 2003 when they tied.
Any particular pairing guesses like that you're especially keen to see on either side? And I'm not even necessarily saying best strategy, but what are some groups TC that you'd like to see this week?
Um, that's a good question.
I got a couple for you if you want to think on it for a
Yeah,
second. But
yeah, go ahead.
I'd like Furyk to pull a Hal Sutton here and do a Scotty and Xander pairing. Would that be like would that be good for the US team? Of course that would not, and I don't think he would do it, but I feel like that'd be good for the game of golf, just like Hal Sutton tried to do. He was vilified unfairly for it, if I may say, when they went 0-2 in 2004, and we're still talking about it. But I think if you're approaching this President's Cup like an entertainment product, watching those two together would be great.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to see something crazy like I don't know, let's throw the Gusty Swine together with Sahith, all right?
Wyndham Clark and Sahith Tagala.
Yeah, some guys that just hit bombs off the tee. Wyndham have to be the sort of steady pairing in that. Yeah.
I'd like to see Scotty and Harmon
Okay.
together. I think that would be just kind of weird and fun. And then singles wise, I just not so much pairings, but matches. I'd like to see Tom Kim play Colin Morikawa. I think that would be a really interesting match on a course that favors accuracy. I think both those guys are probably pretty primed to have a very good showing this week. And I think that would be kind of matching like with like. And that's one of the good things that the President's Cup does too, is the
100%.
alternating draws as far as, it's truly a tit for tat kind of thing. And hey, we're going to match this guy up against that. I think that's a positive in the win column for the entertainment value and for the competitive element here.
It's going to be especially interesting this year when the U.S. has just two massive chess pieces to play at any time. Like, how do you unleash Scotty and Xander when it comes to that? And we got a question in here, and we got a lot of questions we want to get to here. But I thought an extremely important question from Shooter Goob: can we confirm if Pat will or will not be wearing a hat?
Oh,
I saw a picture of him wearing a hat so far on Sunday. I believe he was
wearing a hat. Yeah. Maybe it just depends on how much.
A better job of hat fitting than the PGA of America. Apparently, they got a true hat fitter guy.
Yeah, they may. Who knows? Maybe he's doing some currency manipulation or some currency exchange with Apollo and all that. Maybe I guess technically he is being paid for this, right? The PGA Tour does compensate these guys, or at
It's
least
charitable. It's similar to to the
But he
rider.
knows that it's funding their coffers.
Yeah, indirectly, I guess it's paid.
Yeah. So,
Basically.
no issues. I think he's definitely going to be wearing a hat. Maybe a toque even, right?
I would love to see Tom Kim and Min Woo Lee play together. I feel like that could be about maximum energy. I know you hate Tom Kim, TC, and you hate fun, but I think that would be really
I don't hate
fun.
Tom Kim this week.
Okay.
Just
yeah. How are you
normal
gonna? That was another question we got. Let's see if I can find. Oh yeah, you and Greg. How will TC root for the internationals if he's such a Tom Kim hater? He'll find a way. Like
Yeah,
Greg,
I
he
just
will
want the guy
find
to
a way.
grow up a little bit. Like and I guess some of that's like his Peter Pan naivety and energy is kind of that's like his calling card and all that. But I don't know. He just seems like he's like wildly immature on some of the stuff that matters too. So
So Tom, he thinks the 22-year-old is immature. Yeah, that's probably
he's
it.
been a pro for like 6 years, solid.
He's still 22.
What were you like at TC at 22? Were you still ski bumming around with Randy at this point?
I was an upstanding gentleman. I wasn't destroying greens with my
That's
putter.
fair. That's fair.
Disgusting.
You were in a different way, maybe not directly, but was this a satellite dish era?
It was. It was. Yeah.
I like it. I don't ever heard that story.
I had this Titleist Futura putter that was
Ah.
it looked like a satellite dish.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Wait, where do you think that resides now? Is it like in a second swing somewhere in Boston, like gaining dust?
Yeah, it's probably still floating around somewhere in the used bins.
KV probably has it as a trading aid in some form or fashion. Probably got
Probably.
chopped down into a 12-inch putter that you bought.
That sounds exciting. So I might have to think about that and get a shorter putter.
We hinted at this a little earlier. There's a article from Adam Schupak this past week at Golf Week where he's interviewing Jim Furyk. Summarizing a part of the story, Jim has a quote in there. It says, "I'll leave you with this. I was in New York helping out Steve Stricker at Liberty National, and a very high-ranking official at the PGA Tour said, 'Good luck this week.' It's just the way he said it. It was so backhanded. I said, 'I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean.' He said, 'Well, it would really help the event.' I said, 'Really?' And again, this was in reference to a question that Adam asked about like the internationals potentially winning this thing and it being good for the event. Back to the quotes, Jim said, 'Really? Did you ever play anything in your entire life as a competitor? Because I'd rather you not even say good luck than say it and not even mean it. Do you know how many hours the captains work to try to get to win these matches? Do you know how hard and how much effort the players, how hard they take it when they don't play well? I've seen grown men cry in the locker room because they're upset, and I've seen how much it means to them when they do play well. I know what you're saying, but do you know how offended I am?' He said, 'Well, I'm sorry. No, you should know better.' So he said, so this is to Adam. So it's not like I'm killing you right now, but fuck you. Go fuck yourself. You can quote me on that one."
I'm still trying to picture in my mind what hey, good luck this week. Like would have come across.
Yes.
It's like such a dick move to like, hey, good luck this week.
So I did talk to Adam a little bit this past weekend. He did say that he said, one, I was the only one that asked him about this, but two, that it was a bit like he's known Jim Furyk for a long time. It was a bit tongue in cheek and facetious of like, it's like, I only really included that in the story to say, like, because he said, you can quote me on that one in terms of Jim really wanted
Write
to put
that down.
But I would imagine this is one of those sound bits. I know we talked about this a little bit last night at TC, but one of those sound bites, if you'd have heard it, you'd have just been like, Jim just kind of talking some shit. That's kind of fun. But you write it down in the
Jim
paper.
being Jim.
It does read as not especially like he's in control of the situation and his emotions, but I don't think that's not how Adam necessarily interpreted it. But it made
Jim's got a real like fun, as you know, Sally, like dry sense of humor. Like when I asked him about Patrick Reed for the story that I was writing, he was like, "Oh, well, you really ought to thank your editor for the crap sandwich that you got dealt for Christmas this year." It was like he just kind of has that way of saying those things that you have to see them in person, I think, to really get them.
Yeah, so I know that made the rounds, but initially when I read it, I certainly read it as in like, whoa, dude, like that's a little overreaction to this. You have to understand where people are coming from on all this. And again, from his perspective, I get what he's saying here too about how much time and effort goes into all that. I mean, there's so much time on bullshit and so many media tours and interviews and clothing selections and all this stuff that's like not the fun part that I think he's probably referring to on how much effort goes into winning these things. So I'm definitely understanding in that regard. But
Sully, do you think that the captain's picks should be made as early as they are? Like, is there a case to be made that like Billy Horschel should be on this team?
Literal Horschel rule.
Yeah, we've been through this before. They
Right?
they did this before where they I agreed with it at the time of holding out that one final spot. My opinion on that has changed since then in terms of I guess I just haven't. I don't know if I've seen enough evidence over the years that like a super hot
The hot
hand,
hand. Yeah.
like a 3, 2, 3, 4, whatever weeks beforehand. I mean, Tiger Woods won the FedEx Cup and showed up at France and went 0-4. Like that 2018 team won everything in the playoffs and showed up and nobody did anything in France. Like I just don't know if that is. It seems to be the presiding rule in how everyone thinks of these teams, and I think I've gotten caught up in that, and I just don't know if I subscribe to that anymore. To say like there's a difference in like picking the hot hand. There's a difference in picking the right team, right? Like Herb Brooks quote, "I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones." I subscribe to that maybe more than ever than I have in the past. To say like, look, all I don't have access to all the information and the data that could lead me to the best decision. I can only look at like true strokes gained to say who's played overall the best golf. But when you're coming up with these teams, figuring out who are going to be your drivers on the odd holes in alternate shot might be a different answer of who you want for that role than
Yeah.
like who has played best over the course of the season or who is the hottest hand. And that's harder to put together than we in the public can really know without access to that information. But that's how I view team building at this point. That's how Europe does it and how they've done it effectively and how they've managed the egos to say to players like, I need you to play with Nikolai Højgaard or Justin Rose. I need you to play with Bob McIntyre in Rome in these formats. And this is what I need you to do. Focus on that and don't worry about the rest for the rest of the week. That's how they've gotten the best out of their teams. And that's why I'd like the U.S. team to approach it eventually. I just don't see signs of that happening. So
Gotcha.
long
I'm just
answer.
going through some of the other matches too of like guys that are on this team that they've paired together previously. Quill Hollow, like the Sung Jae and Corey Connors, they paired them up twice.
Which that
Didn't
might
go
not
well.
be, that's a Quail Hollow one. I don't know if that's the
Yeah.
same at Royal Montreal. I don't know the answer. Like that's the kind of stuff that, and we've seen, a lot of Solheim Cup and Ryder Cup teams and President's Cup, like the foursomes pairings are not the same in each session either. Like they may not pair the same guys, in and say like, oh, the book is saying I should pair you. Well, how does that fit into the overall puzzle piece of who we're sending out in the other sessions and all that is something that, again, that's why I love this. Like, I don't want to say love this event. I don't want to get carried away, but like, that's way more interesting to follow than anything else that is going to happen this fall. So get amped, people. Let's get pumped for the President's Cup.
Also, I want to we got Golf Channel. They got 19 hours of live from.
You sent that over. I was like, that has to include replay on that. Like what?
50 hours, including the encore replays. 19 hours. They better be sending Johnson Wagner. I love Montreal, one of my favorite cities in North America. They better be sending him out all over the city with just eating and drinking and
Trying poutine every session, a different poutine.
yeah, different. I mean, all sorts of great steak joints. They got all sorts of crazy car washes up there. They got all sorts of stuff in Montreal.
Quick question: how many hours of live from did the Golf Channel have during the Solheim Cup?
That's a great question. So I would say, maybe 4.
Oh, I would
4 to
say
6?
0. They weren't live from. I mean, they had They have Golf Central Studio.
Oh, they Golf Central there. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
They were not live from. Like that's the whole
live.
name of it. Live from the
Yeah.
actual event. They did not have a
It's
single
just-
one. That's tough.
It's gonna be wild too, because they've got they don't have a massive cast of characters rotating in and out of that. That's 19 hours of stuff and going before and after a double session on Saturday and Sunday or on Saturday. It's
Stay
gonna be
hydrated
crazy.
if you're Brandel.
The channel, man.
We got like 6 to 7 hours of programming this week, and I'm worried about filling it. I don't know how they're filling 19, possibly, but I'm guessing commercials might play a factor in that one. Hey, that one was too easy. Listen.
As we go to commercial,
All protein bars generally taste the same, but not One Bars. One made protein bars that are actually delicious with Reese's and Hershey's. Only one Reese's Peanut Butter Lovers protein bar is made with Reese's Peanut Butter. Only one Hershey's Cookies and Cream protein bar is made with Hershey's Cookie Bits. Each co-branded bar delivers 18 grams of protein and 3 grams of sugar. One also has other delicious flavors like birthday cake, maple glazed donut, and blueberry cobbler, which contain 20 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. One Bar is the perfect protein bar to get you through your busy day. Whether you need a quick pickup between meetings or need some fuel to power you through your workout, One Bars are the perfect treat. Find One Bars at a retailer near you or at Amazon.com. Gosh, I could use
those
those.
blueberry cobbler ones are awesome. I've been hitting those hard. Also, I'll just say we subscribe to the Masters. We have less than 4 minutes of commercial interruptions per hour.
We do.
Far less than that.
We do. We have we actually have 2 minutes per hour on average for the course of our entire year in TC. So we're quite proud of that. Join the nest if you want to support independent content. Kevin, why don't we do a little mini deep dive into some? We love our mega deep dives. I in terms of President's Cup, majors, Ryder Cups, Solheim, whatever it might be. Can you give us anything in recent or past President's Cups that you'd like to do a little mini history lesson on?
Also, I want to call this segment like insane things that happened that you may have forgotten in the President's Cup. You brought up the 2013 President's Cup before in Dublin, Ohio, that you guys happened to be camped out. I remember, I wonder if you guys happen to remember Sammy the Squirrel. If you recall, during the competition, Captain Davis Love befriended a baby squirrel that was running through the woods along hole number 2. He was very hungry. Apparently, animals at this age have much more trust in humans when they are hungry. And so Davis Love, for whatever reason, apparently the competition wasn't so fierce that he couldn't take some time away to feed wild animals. The squirrel then sort of started hanging out on his shoulder and continued to sort of goof around while he was doing his pairings and whatnot. Steve Stricker's wife, Nikki, nicknamed the squirrel Sammy. He basically just became a part of the U.S. team for a while. Some of the more memorable images that you may remember from all this is that Tiger Woods' girlfriend at the time, Lindsey Vonn, was there. And Lindsey Vonn, TC, I included this picture specifically just because she's making the Russell Wilson's girlfriend's face when he got drafted. Lindsey Vonn decided to carry the squirrel
Russell
around.
Wilson's wife.
Yes. Was his wife at the time? Okay, sorry. Yeah. So at the time of this is going on, Davis Love was carrying around the squirrel in his pocket, and all the wives and girlfriends, the wags, were there in the sort of stuff. And Lindsey Vonn put the squirrel in her pocket for a while and then decided that it would be very funny to put this squirrel on her boyfriend at the time, Tiger Woods, which I just love this picture because of Duffner here on the right-hand side. What a time capsule this is. Tiger, like pre-back surgeries, looking like very fit, very young, still got a lot of hair. Yeah, these just in general, like the idea that like Tiger was sort of mildly annoyed that the squirrel was on his back during this, but in the end kind of thought it was like sort of funny and smiled and was seen like holding the squirrel and taking pictures of it. So apparently this caused a little bit of
Don't tell me PETA.
upsetness
No.
or outrage from the PETA people
No,
that you should
really?
not feed wild animals and treat them as props for sporting events. So they had to release the squirrel into the wild. The squirrel spent the night sleeping in a cardboard box. I don't know exactly where. It wasn't exactly designated in the articles about it at the time. Maybe it was in Davis Love's room. I don't know. Maybe the squirrel was helping with the pairings. The U.S. was up 14-8 going into singles. So it wasn't like this was a big sort of, close match. So the Golf Channel filmed footage of Davis Love releasing Sammy back into the wild and trying to convince Sammy that he should go be amongst the wild again. Spoiler, it did not work out. Sammy once Sammy got a taste of the good life in the U.S. team room, he wanted to keep hanging out and keep following around Davis Love. So they had to rehome Sammy in like a wildlife sort of like preserve for a little while, like they literally like 2 months. So they had to like teach Sammy how to find his own nuts and stuff again. And then they brought Sammy back and released him back like a couple months later to Muirfield Village. The last part of this segment, which I did this especially for the both of you, is our friend Jeff Shackelford went out the following year, tried to interview Sammy for the Golf Channel. Very tongue-in-cheek segment. Jeff would probably test there's a reason that he does not work for the Golf Channel anymore because he was asked to do stupid segments like this. But Sammy was sort of an important part in the U.S.'s dominant victory over the internationals at Muirfield Village that year. Sammy's whereabouts are unknown. Alan Basketball of golf.com wrote a piece a year after the President's Cup sort of wondering where Sammy was. And created a whole like literary device where he was talking to Sammy the squirrel, interviewing him about this year as a celebrity, but then actually did some real reporting where he talked to the people at Muirfield and they were like, yeah, we had no way to track whether Sammy still exists. So Sammy could still be out there in theory. Gray squirrels tend to live between 4 and 6 years. in their life, so he'd be kind of on the high end of that at this point.
Buddy,
Who knows
that's
how old he
11
was at the
years
time,
ago.
too.
Excuse me, 11 years ago. Yeah, so R.I.P. Sammy. Sorry. Unless Sammy is like continued to like, learn how to live amongst the humans. Maybe it's like a secret of rats of Nim situation where became super smart and now like builds a whole community of intelligent squirrels that are good at golf pairings. So yeah, that's the most memorable part of insane things that happened from the 2013
KVV. This was in
Yeah.
Ohio, right? JD Vance could be accusing
That
Haitian
is true.
immigrants
Could be
eating Sammy
accusing
the
various
squirrel.
persons.
They're eating the squirrels.
Yeah. I think that's more socially acceptable in some cultures, TC. I don't think it's just limited to
But this was a
immigrants eating squirrels. There's certainly cultures in the United States that eat squirrels. So who knows?
This was the streaker year too, right?
This was
I
the
believe that is
streaker year.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Who knew that we could have done multiple insane things that you don't remember happened at the
Barbara,
President's Cup?
what's this naked
Barbara.
lady doing?
Oh, cover Sammy's eyes. He's too young. He can't see that.
If I remember right, the streaker was just like an actual vendor, like somebody that was working for a vendor. And was like, yeah, the vibe out here blows, and just like stripped their clothes up and ran down the fairway.
Which it sounds kind of
guys got to get the party
Montreal-ish.
started.
If it kind of devolves into that, know that we've got that in our back pocket.
There's very few texts that you can remember like receiving or reading like 10 plus, they're 10 plus years old, but we spent the majority, me, Big Randy, and Goodbar, Randy's brother-in-law, just spent hours upon hours just like shielding ourselves from the rain, walking around the mud. And TC had hospitality that whole week. And we just like never saw him
the whole week.
No, we never saw you the whole week, like the whole time, never saw you. And
it was raining.
I remember Randy sent a message to our group afterwards. It was like, TC, so disappointed on you, man. Just up there hobnobbing. We used to clown on those people, bro.
It rained. The weather was so bad that week.
It was
kind of like you and me at this year's Open Championship, TC. We knew what was rough. We just hid out in the safe place.
Speaking of weather, it looks pretty decent this week. A little bit of rain Wednesday. Highs in the mid 60s, lows in the mid 50s. Mostly cloudy, partly cloudy up in Montreal. So it looks like they're going to get lucky with the weather.
Kev did my research for me on this one. A little deep mini dive I wanted to do. I got completely jammed up on the way to this meeting. But 2019, if I can take you guys back to that, if we go down to Australia, Royal Melbourne, honestly, one of the greatest like golf events I've ever watched. Just absolutely ridiculous golf course. Very close competition. Incredible turnout from the Australian people.
Prime time viewing.
It was awesome. It was the best this event has ever been. So if there's a little apprehension or kind of bitterness on our end in terms of going to someplace like Royal Montreal, like
you gave us a taste of that,
and
then now you're taking it away.
It's tough. It's really tough. That is about as good of a condition of a golf course. Balls bouncing over your head, landing on the green. It was incredible. And this is, of course, the event is happening not even a week after the famous incident of Patrick Reed shoveling sand away from his ball, allegedly. I got you there, TC. Don't you worry about that.
Forensic scientists did spend several hours, according to Justine Reed, looking at this footage
and
realized it was faked.
Yes.
Yeah, doctored.
So this happened on a night, which this tends to happen whenever I take a night off. Scotty Scheffler got arrested this year. Of course, in 2019, I had to go to my wife's Christmas party at her company. This was, of course, happening in December. Great time of year for the President's Cup also, by the way. Happened in December. And there was an incident. There's a tweet from @NoLayingUp, which I believe DJ Pie was running the account that night, that said, been desperately trying to confirm for the last 30 minutes that there was an actual altercation between Reed's caddy and a fan, but couldn't fathom it to be true. Sands just reported it. What a world. Multiple reports from what we've gotten on site said Reed's caddy, Kessler Corain, punched a fan in front of a sizable group. More to come on this. So my phone absolutely blows up and I'm at this party and I was like, honey, I got to run for a second. Reed's caddy punched a fan. Just what? It was complete chaos. Again, I don't know what the source you had of what you sent over here, KV was, but it says Steve Sands, the Golf Channel, is the first to report there had been an altercation between Kessler Corain, Reed's caddy, and a fan. Reed played in the first 3 matches of the President's Cup, went 0-3. I forgot about that detail, which was sick.
Yes.
And
he was shit in that cup
on a great golf course for him.
Yeah, he was getting absolutely ribbed by the fans every single where he went. From the beginning of the week, they're saying you need a shovel, Patrick. He was in the bunker doing like the shovel motions. Remember those from earlier in the week?
Yes. Oh God.
Shushing fans and all that stuff.
Having fun with the fans.
Yeah,
So.
just having a great time. This happened right after Reed and Webb they were boat raced by CT Pan and Hideki Matsuyama. They lost 5-3. Kester Crane got suspended for the remainder of it. He accepted the decision of the PGA Tour to ban his caddy from being involved in the final day of action. He said, I respect it. We are focused on winning the President's Cup tomorrow. Kevin Kirk was Reed's coach. He took Crane's spot on Sunday. And the PGA Tour statement said, following an incident that took place on Saturday at the President's Cup involving Kessler Crane, a spectator, Crane will not return to caddy for Sunday's final round singles match. Truly one of the
Kevin
great.
Kirk. You know who Kevin Kirk is?
Who is that?
Did you not?
Lauren Coughlin's swing coach.
Oh my gosh, I did not make that connection.
Yeah.
So I actually have Kessler. He did send out a statement to I can't believe it was to us.
From the
I
desk.
think it was to
Kessler
Barstool.
Crane.
I think it was Barstool.
Well, it was Barstool and ESPN and someone else. And then I remember there was a big fight between Barstool and ESPN about whether they should have credited one another. But basically,
the big J journalists were.
Kessler sent it to Michael Collins and to the Barstool guys. But he said, as a caddy, one of your jobs is to protect the player. And unlike several other sports, in golf, fans can get pretty close to athletes. We have been known for having fun with some good banter, but after hearing several fans in Australia for 3 days, some had taken it too far. I had had enough, and this gentleman was one of them. Riding in the cart, the guy was about 3 feet from Patrick and said, "You fucking suck." I got off the cart and I shoved him, said a couple things, probably a few expletives. Security came and I got back in the cart and left. I don't think there's one caddy I know that would blame me. Unless his bones break like Mr. Glass, the most harm done was a little spilled beer, which I'm more than happy to reimburse him for.
He got off the cart to do this. Like, it wasn't like, the guy hit him as they were walking or something like that. He actively got off the cart to push the guy.
You had to know what you were getting into after what just happened in the Bahamas and go into a road game like this. Like, it was only going to go
Proper fans down there.
Only going to go one way. But see, good shit, funny shit happens at the President's Cup, man. We could keep going on pretty much all of these. But a few questions. Oh, I got this is a good one from SomBets5. As a player, would you rather make and win a President's Cup or make and lose a Ryder Cup? Obviously, this goes for all the Americans.
Make and lose a Ryder Cup.
I think that's right. I think you'd rather be a part of the Ryder Cup in either way. Like, you're expected to win the President's Cup anyways, so it would be win or lose the Ryder Cup has to be a more monumental thing to participate in.
Well, we can ask Max this question if the U.S. wins, because he will then have one of each.
He does. He already has one of each. He was on a winner in 2022.
That's right. He was. Yeah, we could ask him now. Yeah, I did say, how do you think the pro is going to do this week? That's kind of one thing we haven't kind of touched on.
I think he's a gamer. I think he'll play all right. He'll find something.
It's an interesting test to the JT model in 2023. I was very not shy about saying I think he should be on the team. You're picking the guy and not the form, and you can overcome it. Again, I would have loved to have seen him without getting held down by Jordan Spieth, but it didn't go great. He went 1-2 in Rome, and if Max doesn't do well, then I kind of wonder how much patience there's going to be in the future for picking guys that are big names that have had good success in the event but are not in good form. I think you can make a good case for it if it fits the course and it fits the team in a certain way. They made the determination they couldn't go both JT and Max on this go around, but it's a risk. It is a risk, and he missed the cut at the Pro Tour a couple weeks ago, and I don't know what to expect. I struggle to come up with a prediction here. I think it'll probably, if I had to predict, it's an unsexy answer of probably just be a little meh. It would be my prediction. I don't think he's going to be terrible and not be great. I just tend to think he'll have some flashes and good moments, but it's hard to rule out for him kind of dipping this hard and not think it's going to have any impact on this event is tough.
Yeah. But maybe that affects who they pair him with, right? And they pair him with somebody who's, teeing off on the driver holes more, and he's a par 3 guy or whatever. I haven't really looked at how this
shakes
works as far as the setup goes. Which the other day I realized my home course, there's 5 par 3s. 4 of the 5 par 3s are odd number holes. So I have an alt shot match actually tomorrow morning at 8:20 with the party doctor. And it's always he struggles with the driver, but we want me on the par threes because he's like an eight or a 9 handicap, and it's a fascinating strategic decision making thing.
So I can pull this up. It looks like it is a par 70 course. And the there's only two par fives. That is number 6 and number 12. So they are both even holes. And then par threes come on 5, 7, 13, and 17. The par threes are all odd number holes.
So
So
maybe you
there
have
you
the
go.
pro handle the par threes and somebody else that's
Yeah.
an exceptional driver.
Yeah.
So,
I look, if he plays well and maybe that gives him some confidence back, like that's happened in this event before, like when Adam Scott famously got picked when he probably didn't deserve to, way back the first time that it was down in Australia. Like, I would love to see that for Max.
We got a
Solly,
bunch.
how would you feel if the U.S. team, if say somebody the opposite of Furyk was the captain, it was just like, you know what, we're using this as an incubator. We're gonna use this. Just we're gonna figure out who we got. We're gonna build some depth. If you've played on a Ryder Cup more than once or a President's Cup more than once, you're not on this team or something like that. And it's
Mm.
Akshay, Zalatoris, Sahith, country music sensation Eric Cole, all sorts of. You just dip down the list. You get a couple Corn Ferry guys on there. All that. I'm sure
Nick Dunlop,
the tour wouldn't love it, but
sure.
you know, would you be in favor of that?
I don't know if you'd have to go that extreme of if you've been on more than one. Like I'm not taking Scotty or Xander off the team for any reason in particular.
But like a no hat Pat or
He's an interesting case. Yeah, I mean, of course, I'd be in favor of it. I mean, I'd be really curious to see like what a B team would look like in terms of what kind of
yeah,
strategy they would employ versus like I think the U.S. team can have a tendency to play a little bit too heavily towards the players' egos and managing egos and feelings a little bit too much in this instead of like dictating and the players like not really being they need to be more a part of like laying their egos down at the door to play whatever role the team is needing them as. And I just feel like they always show up at these things expecting to play hero ball and expecting to just play incredible and not like kind of laying down the guard in that regard to say like I'm just going to trust what I need to do. I'm going to not put a huge burden on myself for what I need to do and I'm just going to play the role the team needs me to and I would be stunned if they didn't have more success that way. But it just doesn't seem
yeah.
to be the way these guys' minds work for whatever reason. But that's why these things are interesting. We got a lot of questions from people. We've answered some of them in some form or fashion. Crispy Willow asked if Furyk's approach with the captain's picks caused any tension behind the scenes. To the extent the U.S. is concerned with creating synergy between the President's Cup and Ryder Cup, it's hard to see how these picks will help us build toward Bethpage. I think that's a shared sentiment with a lot of people, especially considering the difference in the courses being played. That's where kind of some of the uninspiring. I don't like dislike the Brian Harman pick that much. Like he's a very fine player and played okay in Rome. Not disqualifyingly bad, not incredible. He's up there in his late 30s, and I just don't know how he's fitting Bethpage, but it's again just very clearly not how they've decided to build this team. So Eat and Sleep Golf said, can we calculate or evaluate what advantage, if any, the American team gains for their Ryder Cup preparation by having President's Cup in alternating years? And I think I'm venturing to argue that it hurts them for some of the reasons we've talked about of the cycles overlapping and the success of this event. It clearly hasn't translated to road victories at all or any other success. I mean, if you go, you'd have to go all the way back to 2012 to find the last iteration of when the U.S. didn't go win, 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 loss on the road Ryder Cup, win, 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 loss on the road Ryder Cup. So I don't know. It just seems like it's just you're playing. Let's say you're playing the Washington Generals. You're just expected to win this every single time, and I don't know what you gain by showing up and doing that every single time.
Solly thinks they should play the President's Cup twice a year, in the spring and the fall.
You guys don't want to play the Ryder Cup every year for some reason, and then we
No,
One
got
day,
we
we
don't.
then we got to play the President's Cup anyways. I mean, come on, we got to have a team event in some way.
Jeff
Thought exercise.
Shackelford, yeah.
What,
Go ahead.
what would it be? What would it mean if the internationals did win? Would the U.S. set off any sort of like, oh, do we have a President's Cup task force? Probably not, obviously. But what would the golfing landscape look like? I mean, obviously the internationals would celebrate the shit out of it. It would be seen as like a really cool moment for Canadian golf. But what would it do to the event going forward?
I think more than anything, it would probably look like when the U.S. men's national basketball team, like A, stopped winning the gold medal, and then B, like started getting their asses kicked like a couple of years later. It's like, all right, we've stopped winning the gold medal with the Ryder Cup, like after, the last couple showings here, especially on the road there, but like they haven't gotten embarrassed
Mhm.
in a spot where, it's like they're getting beat by Puerto Rico or something like that. And
Sure.
I think that's where it would be like, all hands on deck, cause for alarm, think pieces out. Eamon would take a blowtorch to Furyk's captaincy, all that stuff, all hands on deck to just completely tear down the last vestiges of the boys' club,
Does
right?
does one do that? Because I think the more I heard you talk about that, TC, I think it would take a road loss and a home loss. Like, I think
In
that
the
would be
President's Cup, I think it would take a home loss in the Ryder Cup to do that, but I think it would take any loss in the President's Cup,
yeah.
especially on the heels of what happened in Rome, right?
Maybe. I think the reaction would be a little bit more measured, but maybe not. Maybe there would be an I mean, like we'll be some of the people who get to decide how to react to it. If it's a, if the US were to get like blown out, if it weren't even a close thing, if the internationals won by like 4-5, then I could see like, holy shit, like what's wrong with US team golf? Like, are
Yeah,
they
but
in
then it
danger of
opens
losing?
everybody up to be like, well, you know what? JT and Spieth weren't on this team. That's what's wrong
Yeah.
with
Hell
it,
yeah.
right?
You know what? I promise not to do this all week, but like this would be a freaking great matchup if the internationals had everybody at their disposal. Like if they could
Yeah.
add the Cam and the South Americans and all the other like Leash or who like there would be so many more options instead of Bezadenhout and Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith. Like this would be. I mean, the internationals might even be favored because this is not the strongest U.S. team that we've seen in recent years, and I would think they would be primed to be upset if they had their full guys at their disposal. And I don't think Brooks and Bryson are making as big of a difference as it would for the internationals to be able to add all the people that they possibly could. But that's not the situation we have. So we continue on.
Especially after Bryson went into Operation Shutdown mode yesterday in
Lost to Danny Lee.
Dallas. Shot 80 yesterday.
Oh yeah,
Did he shoot 80?
He
the
shot
stroke
80.
button.
Wow.
I thought Brooks shot 80. Bryson shot 80.
Or no, Brooks shot 80. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Come
Yeah,
on,
Brooks shot
TC.
80.
Fake news media. That's going to get aggregated everywhere. Come on. Can't
TC
have
You're supposed
regrets
to be
the
our
error.
live correspondent, TC.
Yeah. Shackelford's doing an interesting thought exercise this week in his newsletter. He kind of drafted a U.S. co-ed team and an international co-ed team, and he's going to play it out as it goes along and do this kind of fan fiction thing with it. But I think the 8 females, 8 males on each team, and it's very interesting to see how it would work.
that
Basically.
or Christian Bezadenhout. Which one's it going to be, TC? Like you can't have both. Okay, come on, make up your mind here. Which would be more appealing
I
here?
think at this point too, the LPGA would be like, guys, like you guys can keep all the money. Just give us a chance to show that like this would be interesting and people would care and people would give a shit. And I still think the PGA Tour would be like, no, we're good.
No, we're fine.
Like I don't think they've ever
Well,
once even considered
I
having
know.
this thing be a co-ed event.
We need that Hell Sutton, like Scotty Scheffler, Nelly Korda pairing, right? To see how they do together.
Yeah, look, you could occupy a lot of time dreaming of ways that this event could get better. It's definitely imperfect. Doesn't mean we're not looking forward to this week, but there's obviously a lot of opportunities to improve this. So we're going to have some more preview content. We'll have our happy hour, of course, on Wednesday. If you are excited to watch Thursday, 11:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Golf Channel, the 4-ball matches. There'll be 5 of those. On Friday, 1 to 6 p.m. on Golf Channel, the foursomes matches. Sounds a lot like a live window now that I see that written out. Saturday, they have 4-ball in the morning, then foursomes in the afternoon, 7 to 8 a.m. on Golf Channel, then 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on NBC. Sunday singles are 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., all on NBC. So not that much channel flipping and no cock blocking this week, which is a good thing. So
I would say they should do a shotgun for singles, for Sunday singles, but there's no way that NBC would ever be able to keep
no,
up with 12
Oh my
matches
God, no.
for the entire day.
God, TC,
that's one of the
a
worst
nightmare.
ideas you've ever come up with, TC. That's what we're going to end the show on. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Come join us for happy hour Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be live every day that the golf ends around 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going live shortly after that. Once we get our ducks in a row, you can find that on our YouTube channel live. They'll be posted to your podcast feed overnight as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Pinehurst. Thank you to FanDuel, One Bar, to TC, KVV, and everyone out there listening. Thanks for tuning in. Crack on.
Let's go Internationals.
For FanDuel, must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and older and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chad in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.